Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the RocketMSP Podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host, and today I'm joined by Timm from Sondela Consulting. Chris, thanks so much for being here today, man.
Hey, Steve, how you doing? Thanks very much for having me. Real pleasure to be here.
That's great, man. I just so if I seem a little disheveled today, guys, or kind of like, ooh, it's because I like literally just got home and like ate my lunch in front of Chris while we started, getting everything set up. And now I just realized I've got Taco Bell sauce all over my stomach.
Yeah. And he didn't even share any with me. I mean,
I
that's like,
didn't.
you know,
But the good news is it was really delicious. So Chris, I don't know. I want to brag a little bit. Because I'm excited. Like when you get a new thing, you're excited.
Absolutely.
So I just got home from getting myself a car.
Cool. What'd you get?
I got a 2013 Volvo XC90.
Nice car.
Yeah. I mean, I've never really known much about Volvo, so I'm kind of excited about this. I suspect Volvo is more of a common car over there just because they at one time were a Swedish vehicle. I don't know what they are now. But yeah, for an 8-year-old car, it feels nice. It's got Bluetooth, it plays my music, and the only thing it doesn't have is a backup camera. So I'm gonna go get one of those here soon. Yeah, so that's my thing.
Yeah, great cars actually. We they are quite common over here. We get a lot of them. Yeah, I don't know if they're still Swedish. I know that it seems like every car manufacturer has been acquired and bought by somebody else. So who knows what they are these days? But
they were acquired. I can't remember if it's a Japanese company or a Chinese company, but they were acquired, and it's like the number 6 or number 7 car maker in the country where they're from, and it's a company that like I've never heard of. I suspect you've never heard of. It's probably over in the Asia, Southeast Asia area. So I'm super stoked. When we're done, I'll go joyriding a little and see what kind of trouble I can get into.
I appreciate that you interviewed me instead of going for a joyride and joyride waits till afterwards. But so I'm stoked. I'm privileged that you've chosen to do that.
I'm excited that I get to interview because you do like PSA RMM consulting, and you That's are correct. I don't know what the right word is, but you're like an Autotask consultant. So I assume that means you also do Datto RMM.
I do, yeah.
Are there any other RMMs or PSAs that you work with?
No, so predominantly it's Autotask and the Datto RMM. I can help MSPs conceptually on some of the other tools, but predominantly it's Autotask. So if they want me to kind of help them get hands-on and down and dirty into the product and set it up, then yeah, it's predominantly going to be.
Well, very cool. So, when I think about PSAs and RMMs, I think about all of the broken promises that oh, this thing's gonna do everything for you, says the sales guy, and then you like log into it for the first time and you realize unless you spend 3.5 years configuring this thing, it's going to do nothing for you.
Yes, I mean you need to spend some time configuring it, and I think a lot of the time it's actually the MSP generally sort of going into it with the wrong mindset, right? So it's they want a service delivery tool and they look for a PSA tool, or they want to a CRM tool, and they look for a PSA tool. So, each one of those modules on its own is not what a PSA tool is. So it's not a service delivery tool. It's a complete business management platform. So I think part of the reason why a lot of people, I guess, go wrong, or why it takes so long for them to set it up, is because or even why it appears to be broken promises, is because very often they'll go into it with the wrong mindset, right? So they'll go to the PSA company and say, I need a service desk, and they'll go, yeah, it's a service desk. And then actually later on, they'll find out it's actually not a service desk they want, it's a billing platform or it's something else. So,
gotcha. Yeah. Now, when somebody says I'm an Autotask consultant, it makes me wonder, like, who on earth wants to be an Autotask consultant? Like, so what did you do before this? Like, you weren't like a bread maker or a machinist. Like, you ran an MSP, or you did accounting, something like that, right?
Man, I wish I was a bread maker. I love baking. But no, I wasn't. I was an MSP before this. Been in the MSP industry for a long time. Sold my MSP business back in 2012. And then I was actually approached by Autotask in the UK just when I was selling up. They were looking for somebody to come in and help them head up their pre-sales and implementation teams. So I took on a position with them, and I ran those departments for 5.5 years. So gained a huge amount of experience of the Autotask product, and also having had the experience of running and selling an MSP business. I then actually decided to I could use those skills to help other MSPs to get the best out of Autotask. So then around 5 years ago, I started up as an independent Autotask PSA consultant.
All right. And so you said about 5 years ago you went independent. For the few years before that, you were working with Autotask. You were basically an employee there, it sounds like.
Yep.
And then you ran an MSP. You sold it in 2012. So I feel like we're checking off all the boxes here, man. This is good stuff. So let's talk about PSAs. You only work with Autotask, but regardless of whatever PSA people are using, if you could sum up the most important things that every MSP should be doing in their PSA in 3 or 4 bullet points, what would those points be?
That's a great question, and like I said earlier on, a lot of MSPs buy it purely as a service desk, and that's one of the things absolutely you should be getting right, and you should be doing in the PSA. But there's a lot more that you can do in it. So, billing is a really important aspect, because it's going to allow you to run the billing out of Autotask. It's also going to allow you to understand the profitability against all of your contracts. So certainly running the contract management through Autotask, putting in all of the things that you're selling to your customer on a monthly basis, your Microsoft 365, running all of that stuff through the system and billing for that. So that's definitely another thing. And then I would absolutely say that, any MSP should be running their sales pipeline through that as well. So it has a fully fledged CRM system in it with opportunity management. So you can then, track your opportunity pipeline. And also, more importantly, over and above that, which ties into the ticketing system, is allowing you to track the value of those opportunities and track the pre-sales activity against those opportunities as well. So, those are some really important things that MSPs should be using the PSA tool for, not just as a service desk.
Excellent. So I believe the things that I was able to take away from that are do all of your billing, make sure you have all your products and services that you sell in there, and make sure you're utilizing the sales and opportunities portion.
Yeah.
And making sure you add values and products and services and contract lengths and all that stuff. So that way, when you convert it from a quote to a sales order, you can create a contract, you can create a ticket and invoice them and whatever else. Everything happens in Autotask. And from what I remember from when I was an Autotask user, um, the really nice thing is when you're doing everything in your PSA, what's ConnectWise always say? If it's not in ConnectWise, it never happened, right? So
Yeah.
that's my approach for all of them. If it's not in Autotask, it never happened. If it's not in Kaseya BMS, it never happened. So if you're not tracking, I sold a $9,000 project, and my my profitability on that was 1,200 because it was mostly hardware. Then, like, why do you have a PSA if you're not going to track all that kind of stuff? You should be able to look at your profitability down to how profitable is each client worth to me.
It is. And the thing with profitability as well is it's not just about, working out how much the opportunities are worth and how much your contracts are worth. It's where a lot of MSPs, also don't put things into the system correctly is things like cost, right? Burden rates. So the cost of the engineer, because every time that engineer then adds time against the ticket, you can either go and bill for that ticket, as break fix or ad hoc, whatever the case might be, or billing it against the contract. But now what you're going to be able to do is to understand exactly how much that contract is costing you and how much that engineer's time is costing you. And the way that all PSA tools work with profitability, very, very simple. It takes your revenue minus all of your costs. So that's going to be the costs of all the products and services that you're selling, as well as the costs of the engineers. Very few people actually put their engineers' costs in there. And they are a cost in the business. So take into account all of those costs. It then takes your revenue, minuses all of those costs, and gives you a profitability.
Well, the nice thing is a lot of MSPs, their engineers are just volunteers. They don't do this for the money or for the glory. They just really love to work for free and get shit on by people. That's
exactly, yeah. That's what it sometimes feels like.
That's why people don't put their employee costs in, because they don't pay them anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sometimes as an engineer, when I used to be an engineer, sometimes it felt like that, right? But
yeah. So
yeah.
Let's talk about profitability for a moment, and I'm going to give you an opportunity right now. Shameless plug. Let's do it, Chris.
You want me to do it? What
We're
about
going to
profitability?
do it. PSA Profitability. You can buy that book at your favorite bookstore, right?
At your favorite Amazon bookstore.
Yes.
Yes, available.
Are there any other bookstores other than Amazon? Let's be honest.
Other bookstores are available, right? But yeah, at your favorite Amazon bookstore, so you can get it in print format, like you can see there, or you can get it in Kindle. I've had a few people ask me if there's an audio version yet, and there is one coming, but I'm still trying to record it at the moment. So,
well, if you want, I can record it for you. And I'll get real close to the mic, so it'll be half book reading, half ASMR. Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, we'll talk.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can start now.
I can't read it. It's yeah. I'll tell you what. Send me the PDF.
Yeah, we're messing now, but no, I mean, so I wrote that book in September 2019. So it's been September 2020. I lie. So it's September 2020. So it's only been a good few months. And I wrote it pretty much for what we've just talked about, right? Is there's a lot of MSPs that buy a PSA tool, they use it as a service desk, they don't know how to get any profitability information out of it. So I wrote the book to say, I can help you by reading that book to understand how to become a profitable MSP, how to get the profitability information out of it, how to set up the correct reports, and ultimately where to actually go and actually set those costs up. So how to work out that burden rate, right? Because I mentioned burden rate and not many people actually know what it is or how to work it out. So it tells you in the book how to go and work it out, where to actually put it into your PSA tool, and then gives you some of the key reports that you should be running as an MSP to get profitability information.
Awesome. Can you kind of show us a little bit right now?
Sure. Yep. I can absolutely do that. I have my screen up, so whenever you're ready, there we
Oops,
go.
I'm on the wrong side here. That's why. I'll just excuse me, pardon me. We're gonna switch sides here. And then there you go.
That's better. Okie dokie. So yeah, so basically what I'm going to do is to show you a few key reports that you're going to be able to get out of Autotask. This is a demo account, so none of these figures are real, but right built out of the box in Autotask comes with a finance tab built in. So this is going to give you, how much revenue you've posted this month versus how much you've made last month. So if this was my MSP, I would, I guess it's only the 10th of the month, so hopefully I'm doing okay. But, you can see I made a substantial amount more than I did last month than I did this month. But let's have a look at this. If we click into here, you can actually now start to see exactly where this is coming from. So, I can see recurring services bundle. Then I can actually see how much profit I've made on each one of those line items. So we're selling this for £15 or dollars, whatever it is. It's cost us 5, therefore our profit is 10, which is a 66% profitability. So we can break this down right down to specific line items and specific services within this contract. So
I see that the Justice League has been one of your best customers.
Hey, the Justice League is a great customer. I mean, Batman spends a lot with us.
Yeah.
So exactly, and there you go. So you can see that Justice League. How much revenue have we made this month from them? Again, where's that revenue come from? So I can now see, there's some recurring service bundles on an all-you-can-eat contract, and I can go ahead and just very quickly see all of this information. So that's one place at a glance to straight away see your most profitable customers. But my two favorite ones I actually love to look at, believe it or not, is my least profitable customers and my bottom revenue earners. It just so happens that because I've only run 2 through the billing, they both actually are top and bottom. But normally these would be a lot more accurate. But here you can start to see who are my least profitable, right? So which customers are either not profitable at all, or which customers are costing me money, right? So you're going to see the bottom revenue, and then you're also going to start to be able to see information about the least profitable out of those. And then we can look at the most profitable, and we can also start to look at, just revenue by customers as well. So this is starting to give us, just at a glance, very, very quickly as to who those customers are. And we can run this over sort of the last 3 months and start to get that information. So that's one of the dashboards. And this particular dashboard, except these least profitable widgets, are actually built out of the box. So for anyone that's using Autotask, you'll have the most profitable and you'll have the top revenue earner. All you have to do is simply copy these widgets like this. And when you copy them, all you need to do is go into the options and change the top 5 to the bottom 5, and then just change that word from most to least, and it'll create a new widget for you, and it'll just flick them around. So really, really cool. Again, this one here is a great widget because you can start to see your forecast of recurring revenue. So I can see that, getting towards December this year, I'm not making anywhere near as much money in recurring revenue. So why is that? Right? That might be that I've had customers that have canceled, or maybe there's, I just haven't renewed the contracts, whatever the case might be. But I can start to see, my revenue dipping off towards the end of the year.
So to clarify, the revenue forecast with it trending downward, that could be simply because contracts they have an expiration date coming up, and you simply haven't renewed it, right?
Pretty much. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Or and that's maybe because a customer's cancelled, so I haven't renewed it. Or it may be that, I just simply have it's got an expiration date, and I just need to go on and actually go and renew that contract. So there is a wizard where you can simply go ahead and run the renewal wizard and just go and renew those contracts. There is also a widget that allows you to to actually see which contracts are expiring. And I'll build that a little bit later, and I'll actually show people how you would look at what contracts are expiring.
Very cool.
One of the ones I wanted to also point out is our margin tab. So now we can start to look at things like profitability margin by customers. So we can start to now see that Able Manufacturing, this is running for last month. We can see that as a percentage, Old Rec Engineering or Able Manufacturing, is 85% profitable last month. So these are great customers to have. And again, we can flick this one around, and we can say, show us all of the customers where we're making a negative profitability margin. So this is a widget that I actually built, and this is a widget that does not come out of the box, but very, very simple to build. We can easily build this kind of widget in a few minutes.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think from a point of view of being able to just very quickly see that profitability. And again, clicking into it, right? Being able to actually go into here and say, where's that coming from? So I can see for Old Rec Engineering, there's a domain registration as a subscription. And actually, here's a perfect example of where this actually probably isn't that accurate, because what we can see in here is we've made, revenue of £400, but we've got a cost of $0. So if this is a domain registration, it's probably actually not costing us nothing. So we are going to be buying that domain registration. So this is an example, by looking at this, I might think to myself, this is great. This customer's really profitable. I can see it's 100% profitable. When I click into here, I can very quickly see the reason why. So I'm going to know that something's wrong.
I think it's safe to say I don't know of a single thing that we can do for a customer that's 100% profit.
Yeah, nothing would be. And, and then if you had a ticket against this for whatever reason to go and install this or what have you, then you're going to have, labor burden rates against this too. So that cost is going to take into account there. So whenever I see anything that's showing as 100% profitability, I know that there's an issue. And as you say, there's no way we're ever going to have 100% profitability on everything we do for customers. All right. So there's a really good example of something that I should be correcting and making sure it's working.
Awesome.
And then one other one, and I'm not sure where it is. It might be this one here. Yeah. So this one here now also gives us a complete overview of, again, everything that's happening on this customer site. So I can see a complete financial performance. So this is showing me in general for all my customers, revenue year to date. And I can also see my profits and my costs year to date, and therefore my year to date profitability. So giving me some really good figures right there. And again, this was something that I built, but it doesn't take very long to build this kind of widget. And then more importantly, which customers still owe me money. So I can see there's £380,000 in this case, or whatever that is, $500,000 odd. That's still outstanding. And when I click into here, I can then see exactly where those are coming from and which companies it is that still owes us that money. Okay, so it gives us, these are the kinds of reports that an MSP could run. And some of these are out of the box, and the rest of them, are very straightforward widgets to build, and doesn't take you very long to build this at all.
I like these. Now, what about somebody that maybe just signed up with Autotask and they've imported all of their customers and the contacts, and then now I need to make a bazillion contracts.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm going, don't you?
Yeah. You're going to want to know if you can import them or...
No.
Oh, no.
They're
going to come to me.
No. Well, I mean, they can, but maybe you're not aware of it.
Okay, well, let me show you where they would go, because actually in order tasks, certainly there's actually a wizard that you can log into.
Okay.
If you go to contracts.autotask.net.
Yes.
So in here you would log in, and this would take you into a complete wizard that you can just build all of the contracts in pretty much in one go. So you select all the customers, select what services they have, select the start and end date of those contracts. Next, finished, boom, all your contracts are created for all your customers, ready to go. But you'd have to have the services, and the charges and what have you already entered into the system. But you can just run this contract creation wizard that'll allow you to do that straight away.
I don't know why, I feel like the contract creation utility is Autotask's best kept secret.
It is. Very few people actually know about it, and it is it's kind of outside of the product, so it's not built into the UI, and I think that's probably just why a lot of people don't really know about it. But yeah, it's there. It's just contracts.autotask.net. You just log in with your normal Autotask details, and you'll be able to run that wizard.
Are you able to turn your gain up a little bit on your Rode mic?
Sure.
Or whatever. I don't know. Do you have one of those fancy Roadcasters?
I do, yeah.
Man, I see myself getting one of those in the next couple months.
Yeah, great.
I'm sick of having this this blue condenser mic. I need a dynamic mic.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, I've turned it up quite a bit, so it's it's fairly high just looking at it now.
Good. Yeah, so for some reason sometimes your voice would just kind of fade away sometimes. So hopefully this kind of prevents that moving forward. For those of you watching us live, feel free to put something as a comment. Let me know how we sound. Is whatever, right? All right, so we talked about some profitability. I let you show off the contract tool because it's just such a freaking cool tool, man. Let's talk about products and services. Now, when setting up Autotask or maybe just when getting a new service or whatever, right? You should be setting up your products and services in Autotask so that way they can synchronize over to your QuickBooks or Xero or whatever you're using. But you should also be probably using a unique, like let's say you sell some hardware. So should you have a unique product for each type of hardware? Like this is a Dell Latitude and here's a Dell Precision and this one's got 16 gigs of RAM, or can you just have a generic hardware and just use that for hardware, and then with each quote you put in the cost for that hardware and then just charge some hardware?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually that's the way I recommend people do it, is they just have a generic product. So you just have I wouldn't even go as far as saying Dell laptop or Dell PC. I would just say PC or laptop or whatever it is. And then, and then when you quote for it, you just bring it in. You can change the description, you can change the cost, you can change the selling price, you can change all of that kind of stuff at the quote level. The same thing with services. I mean, when you're bringing in services from various vendors and what have you, they're all going to come in as whatever they are. So things like Microsoft 365, or a premium, basic, advanced, whatever they call them these days. So they're all going to come in as those specific things. Those are the only ones that you really need to kind of, be very specific as to what they are, because when you bring them into a contract, you can't then change the names of those services.
Right.
So the service name is what it's going to pull in. But from a product perspective, you can just change in fact, you really don't need to change the name of it in a product when you're quoting anyway. So you could just say laptop, and then you could say 4 gigs of RAM or 4 gigs of RAM.
You just put whatever you want in the
8, 16 gigs of RAM, whatever it is. and you put whatever you want, put the cost price in, the selling price. Yeah. So I think keep it as generic as possible. Although if you are using a third-party quoting tool, and there's millions of them out there, things like, Zementum, IT Quota, QuoteWorks, all of those kind of things, they're all going to bring in the product, very specific. So they're going to bring in a Dell Latitude XPS, whatever it's called. They're going to bring that in exactly as it is, right down to the make and model and serial number of that machine.
And not only that, but they're going to, if you've got the real-time feed set up with distribution, they'll even bring in part numbers and SKUs and everything else. So that way, when it comes time to order it, sometimes the quoting tool, the third-party ones, you just press a button and it sends them a purchase order and buys it.
Yeah.
Now, what do you recommend for people right now who are like, man, whenever I quote somebody, I just put something in an email and hope they buy it? Do they need to is switching over to IT Quoter or QuoteWorks with the web page where they can approve or deny and punch in credit cards and then you've got the Etilize data and whatever else. Is that just overkill? Are you?
No, I definitely think it's well worth having one of those third-party quoting tools. I guess because what the advantage of those is, well, firstly, they look massively professional. And I think if you're just going to send a one line to your customer in an email, it's not very professional, first of all. Secondly, I think that they all give the customer the ability to change quantities. So, you can say, well, these are optional, so you can have this one with this memory or whatever the case might be. And the customers can pick all of that. They can also then, type some notes and ask you some questions about it. So I think it's absolutely necessary having a third-party quoting tool. They all work pretty much in the same way. They all, as you say, they all link to Etilize. They all link to the vendors. And the big vendors, the Ingrams and Tech Datas of the world are pretty much worldwide. So it doesn't really matter where you are. It's going to work with those big vendors in whatever country you're in.
Cool. All right. Let's talk about digging deeper into sales and opportunities. Maybe it may be possible that when we're setting up an opportunity, we're doing things incorrectly. Because sometimes it wants to know, what's the temperature of this opportunity? I don't freaking know. So can you kind of walk us through setting up an opportunity and maybe kind of give us some pointers on?
Sure. So actually, one of the really nice things about Autotask is it has these things called not a ticket. It has these things called opportunity categories. Well, it has ticket categories as well. But what this allows you to do is to completely customize what information goes in here. So, for example, I don't know why this has got Motorola in this demo database, but let's run with it. So here you can see, opportunity category, and then there's specific questions based on this type of opportunity. So, I can customize this to say, is pre-sales needed? What questions I need to ask about that. And that is going to be specific to this type of opportunity. So this could be, opportunity to provide hardware or, maybe, I don't know, network refresh opportunity, whatever the case might be. And these questions here can be specific to that. So you can get rid also of some of these. So if you didn't want rating or you didn't want probability, you can get rid of all of these fields inside the opportunity category. So you could just have 3 or 4 fields that you needed and have that information entered in there, just in a few fields. So, so you can completely customize that, completely customize how you want this information to look, and also the position of all of these. So you can see that the opportunity owner is all the way down the bottom, as is, the actual values of the opportunity, which, in my opinion, these are kind of the more important things. So we can simply just move these right to the very top. So, we can take this whole value section, move it to the top. In fact, I'll actually, this is probably a little bit of free consulting. So let me go in and kind of show you guys how to do this. But if we went to sales and opportunities, I could come in here, create an opportunity category. Let's just edit this Motorola one. And if we just said, for example, we're going to edit this and come into details, and then I can say, here's these specific questions that I had. But then I might say, do you know what? I'm not interested in the probability, so I can just hide that field. I'm not interested in, or let's say this whole section of values. I can simply just move this to the top, right? And then maybe, maybe I never sell anything quarterly, so let's just get rid of the quarterly revenue. And when I save this, I go in and I create a new opportunity. What you'll actually see now is that if I pick that Motorola opportunity, now you can see the values right at the very top. And my specific questions have now moved down a little bit. And I also don't have anything, on the probability and all that kind of stuff. So to answer that question, I know is a little bit long-winded, but to answer that question, you can completely customize this, and you don't need to have information in the opportunity that you don't need or that you don't want.
Now let's talk about the probability and the temperature rating, whatever you want to call those things. So whether you choose to have them in there or not, I think one of the things that probably most MSPs either don't understand or maybe just completely getting wrong is how should they be using them? Like, I understand that some of these things are maybe subjective, or there's no wrong way as long as you're using it consistently or whatever. But my thought was always kind of probability. Like, I can't ask a customer, how likely are you to buy this? Because, the probability of them buying one of them is probably 100%. But maybe it's, they're getting quotes from me and 4 other companies. So I guess I look at it as my probability is 20%.
Sure. And, I think the probability, and that's exactly what it is, right? It's going to be pretty much down to what you think the probability of them buying from you is going to be. So, the probability is going to be, 20%, 30%. And you can actually, on the stage of the opportunity, so if you go into, here we've got status, we don't have stage in here, but, we could change this to say, if it's, let me just pick this stage, this one here. So, if you go into the stage of the opportunity and you say, this is at proposal sent stage, then we can automatically change that probability based on that stage. So if I say, at this point, when it's first contact, who knows, right? Who knows if they're going to buy from me? But if I'm sending them a proposal, they've probably said that they're interested in buying from me because I've now sending them a proposal. So my probability is probably going to go up by, maybe up to 30 or 40%. And then, certainly when I actually then send them the contract, then at that point I might want to change the probability to 100% because now I've sent them a contract and they're going to buy. So based on these stages, you can actually have it that it changes the probability based on what you enter in here.
And are those kind of changes workflow rules, or is it somewhere else in the...
They workflow rules, yeah.
Okay. Now, other people, instead of using I've got a 1/5 chance of getting it, 1 in 5, because it's me and 4 other MSPs. They may have, like, if it's an MSP service opportunity, then maybe they've done enough prospecting and selling that they actually know, like, if a company reaches out to us, we know that of the last 500 of the people that have reached out to us for managed services, 50 of them signed up. So we know that 10% of the people sign up. So maybe the probability on that's 10%. or if it's an out, and maybe you've got different opportunity types, whether it's an inbound or an outbound or something like that. Like how granular do you recommend people get when setting up their sales and opportunities and the pipeline and all that stuff? And does it change based on like their size of employees or amount of gross revenue or anything like that?
That's a great question. And I mean, so yeah, you can set these again to say, if this is if this is an opportunity category for Motorola, for example, then again, we can say if this is an inbound lead or it's a lead from a trade show, we might set the probability at 40%. But if it's it's an existing customer and we have an opportunity category here, maybe called existing customer for something, then maybe we give it an 80% probability. So we can change it based on this category as well. And I think probabilities are going to be very much based on, the size of the opportunity, the type of the opportunity that you're working on, because everything's going to be different, and you're going to know your clients better than anyone else. And if it's a prospect, I guess if you go and have a meeting with them or you talk to them about something and they, and they make a lot of excited noises about things, then you might say, you know what, this might be a much higher opportunity and a much better chance of me winning this than if it was something that they, weren't really interested. So I think it is going to be on a case-by-case basis, and it is going to be based on the type of opportunity and the type of lead and the type of customer and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. All right. What other, I don't know, like stuff do you recommend MSPs be doing in their PSA, like at a bare minimum? I suspect that there's something that we should be doing beyond the here's how it comes from the factory kind of thing when it comes to like service, whether it's service desks or queues or depending on what system you're using. If you're going to follow, like maybe you want to follow ITIL, so you want to set up your ticket type, subtype, all that stuff. How do you recommend people set that type of stuff up?
That's a great question. And so out of the box, Autotask especially comes with queues that are and I'll show you on this one if I can show you. So if we go back to features and settings and we go to service desk settings, so here under queues, I mean, you'll see that this particular database has hundreds of different queues. I would absolutely keep this as simple as possible. So here you can see we've got first line triage, and we've got second line and third line. So out of the box, Autotask will always come with a first line and second line queue, and I see so many people just leaving those in place. And if you're a small MSP with a flat structure and everyone's doing the same work, everybody is going to be doing both first and second line support, and you're not really escalating tickets to everybody, then I would just have a queue here called support. And I wouldn't necessarily have a second line support queue. The only time you really need to have, queues is if you have dedicated people that are doing those particular roles. So if you had second and third line people in this case, then you could say, first line, they get to a point where they can't deal with this ticket anymore. They either push it to second or third line. And the first line guys don't see what tickets are in the third line queue. So out of the box, it's going to come set up like that. It's going to come with a first and a second line queue. If I'm working with a smaller 1 and 2 man MSPs, I normally just get rid of those queues and we reset these and we change them back to something very, very simple and very straightforward. And then things like monitoring alerts, I would have a specific queue for that as well, because that's giving you the ability to say that it's keeping all of the monitoring alerts in one place. Just bear with me, Steve. I'm going to close the door. There's an airport just near my house, and the
don't worry about it, man. I get it.
There you go. There's these noisy planes that keep flying over the top of my house, and then I can't hear anything. So you basically have the ability to change all of these to to set them to be as simple as you possibly can. Things like monitoring alerts. I would have a queue called monitoring alerts, and this keeps all the RMM noise in there, right? So you don't then have the RMM noise kind of hitting your support queue, which I call your working queue, because that's where your engineers are going to be working, going to be focusing on fixing issues. You don't want to be having those guys coming in and working on or looking through this list of tickets that's got a whole bunch of RMM noise in it. So I normally keep that stuff completely separate. So that's one of the things I definitely think people should look at and should start to change and really think about what does the structure of my service desk look like, and how do I actually need to do I need so many levels of queues? And the other thing is this. So you can see, I mean, again, in here, this is only a demo account, but you can see how many statuses there are. People just get far too confused. So they'll just look at this and say, oh, I don't even know what status I'm supposed to change this ticket into. Luckily, though, in Autotask, in those ticket categories where I showed you the opportunity category, they have the same thing with tickets. So you can, based on the type of tickets, based on the category, you can pare this list down so that you only show a few tickets in that list, or a few statuses even in that list. But yeah, I just think, keep these as simple as possible. You don't need to have, a ticket status for, every little thing that you do.
I like that. Now, the status thing, that's easy to overcomplicate because I'm waiting on customer, I'm waiting on vendor, and then maybe I want to set up a bunch of workflow rules for if I'm waiting on the customer and it's been so long, I want to start nagging the customer. And then sometimes in my ignorance of setting up workflow rules, maybe I think I need to have it make a change so that way the timer kind of starts over kind of thing, if that makes sense. So if it's been waiting on them for 1 day and then 2 days and then 3 days, I never know the right way to set that up. Do I have it shoot them an email and then change the status to waiting customer, second notification, that kind of thing, or do I just keep them on waiting customer and set up the workflow differently?
Great question again, and it depends. So yeah, waiting customer here. If you again, it all is going to boil down to your SLAs as well. So if you changed your ticket from you went from new to in progress, then you're going to hit your first response. So your clock starts ticking, your SLA clock starts ticking at the new stage. What's then going to happen is you're going to change it into in progress, and then you're going to say waiting customer. That's going to pause your SLA clock. Now, what you would do at that point is send the customer an email saying, hey, Mr. Customer, we're waiting for you to come back to us. And we could workflow around that then. It would then say, okay, we're now, we're waiting for you. If we haven't heard back from you for 3 days, we then send another email saying we haven't heard back for 3 days. If we still haven't heard back after 5 days, maybe we send a little bit more harsh. And then after, say, 8 or 9 days, we just close the ticket down. So we can do those. And then when we then close the ticket, it then says, it hits our resolved SLA at that point. So this gives us the ability to keep those things going through the workflows, but also allows us to, pause the SLA clock. Because if we're waiting for the customer, we don't want the SLA clock to continue ticking while we're waiting for the customer. So, and that could be 10 days, 15 days for them to get back to us. If they then do get back to us within, say, 15 days, and then we change it back to in progress or back to some other status, then the SLA clock continues to tick after there. But when it's in that status, it'll just pause it, and only when we then change it back to something else, it will restart it. So, but yeah, I mean, I think, the problem with a lot of these statuses as well is, this one here, and I see this so many times, I see people having one that's called waiting approval. And, I always challenge my customers on that and say, what does that mean? Whose approval is this waiting for? Is this the customer's approval, Is this manager approval? Is this, whose approval?
Who's
Is it?
manager? Your manager?
Because yeah, exactly. It's like waiting approval. It's like, okay, well, if that's waiting for the customer approval, then you've already got a waiting customer, so you don't need to have a waiting approval for the customer, because I would then mark that into waiting customer, and I would then put some notes against that ticket to say, waiting customer, hey, I'm waiting for you to come back and approve this or do whatever the case might be. So, and I see this, it's weird, and this is actually not even a system one out of the box, but almost every MSP I work with has a waiting approval status, and you just don't need it. And then again, approved. So, what does that mean? I mean, what's approved? So if you are going to have these kinds of things as waiting approval or approved, then say waiting manager approval or waiting internal approval or waiting customer approval, whatever the case might be, but don't just kind of make them, wishy-washy like this and call them waiting approval. So.
All right. And let's talk about workflow rules for a little bit. Mm-hmm. So workflow rules is kind of overwhelming. It's kind of looking at a list of 75 ticket queues. Like, where on earth do we begin? So do you have like a list of when somebody hires you, do you have a list of, here's bare minimum, obviously they're going to need all these workflows? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. So I have a set of best practices, standard workflow rules. I mean, there are a bunch out of the box already that come out of the box. But one of them is the one we just spoke about, when a ticket is waiting customer, I have a workflow rule that I set up with them that says, let's look at this after 2 days, 3 days, and 5 days. And some customers want that after 10 days or whatever. So if after 10 days we haven't heard back from you, we'll automatically close the ticket. Now, I'm a big fan of workflow rules that automate, pretty much everything on the system. But I do find that what a lot of people do is they tend to have workflow rules that notify people on every little thing that happens. And I'm not a big fan of email notifications coming out of workflow rules. So, again, if you're going to set up workflow rules, and most of the ones that I set up will have, for example, we'll say if a ticket has been sitting in a queue for longer than a certain period of time, then, automatically change the engineer or move it to a different queue or do whatever the case might be, but just move it out of the triage queue so that the ticket is being actioned. And what I will do, instead of emailing it to a person, I will actually set that to send it somewhere like Slack or Teams or one of those kind of things. So it still sends an email. It just doesn't send it to you as an email. It'll send it into a Teams channel or something to that effect. So yeah, I have a bunch of workflow rules that I can set up for a bunch of things, and I just work through with my clients of the things that they need to workflow on and automate, and then we automate them from there.
So without telling us like how to set them up, can you rattle off some of your favorite workflow rules?
Sure. So again, notifying if a ticket has been in an idle state for a particular period of time. So maybe it's been idle for a few days. That's going to notify somebody. When a ticket comes in from an RMM tool that has some kind of words in the, or actually from anywhere that has some kind of words in the email. So maybe it's got virus or server or something. Then change the status. Change the priority, those kinds of things. So we can do those, and I've got a few of those kinds of things that I normally set up for people.
And then what's the most like convoluted or complex workflow rule that you've ever set up?
There aren't really any that are that, well, I don't find them that complicated. I mean, people like to do weird and wonderful things with them. Sort of changing into different queues and removing, engineers and all these kind of things. But there's nothing that's really that complicated on them. What I do find, and you were just asking, just actually going back to the previous thing about, best practices. And I often find that almost every MSP I work with has different requirements. So even though I have a list of standard, workflow rules and queues and statuses that people use, I tend to customize a lot of the implementations that I do, and the consulting calls that I do, purely because no matter we all think that we're the same as the next MSP down the road, and most of the time we are, because of the types of services that we deliver, those kinds of things. But the internal processes on how we do things are going to be different in every company. So I normally just bespoke all of the workflow rules that people need, and bespoke all of the templates and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Let's talk about RMMs.
Yeah.
So Datto RMM.
Yeah.
I have a list here. Why aren't I reading it? Can you sum up maybe what the most important thing or things would be in the RMM tool to do?
Sure. So certainly, a biggie as far as RMM tools are concerned is patch management. So certainly being able to, automate the patch management of not just the Windows devices, but third-party tools as well. So the Datto RMM tool allows you to do that. Allows you to, it has a component built in that allows you to kind of patch some of the third-party tools, to be fair.
Right.
But patch management, for Windows devices is probably one of the most important things you want to automate. But also being able to keep an eye on the basic stuff. So, is the CPU spiking at, on somebody's machine, or, is the hard disk space about to run out? So keeping an eye on those kinds of, on the very, very basic things is what an RMM tool is going to do and what it's going to be good at. When I had my MSP business, we actually called, we gave our RMM tool a name, and we used to tell our customers it was called Eyes On, which basically was, we just keep eyes on your system all the time. And, every time anything went wrong, it would obviously alert and tell us where something went wrong. So, so the thing about RMM tools, they allow you to really, automate everything, become much more efficient, and just provide a much better level of service to your customers, because you're able to do a lot of that stuff on scale as well. So you're able to kind of, just go ahead and patch all of the machines, or update all the third-party applications and all that kind of stuff.
So let's talk about monitoring for a little while. So what should MSPs be monitoring that you find they often aren't? Because I think, when it comes to CPU and hard disk space, those monitors are typically easy enough to set up that even somebody that's just getting started with the RMM that has no clue where to begin, they can at least set that up. What are some of the bigger monitors, or I'm sorry, I don't know what the right word is that I'm looking for, but what are some of the monitors that you find are most common that everyone should be setting up, but maybe they aren't?
It's a good question as well. And again, I think it's going to be to do with, which applications need to be updated. So things like, again, Adobe, which version is it running? Does it need an update? Those kinds of things, and then automatically update them. And then, things like, and again, it depends on the MSP and depends on what the environment is that they got out there. But certainly, things like status monitors. So, checking, and actually, this is a very basic one that very few people actually set up, that, checking to see if your servers have gone down, right? where they all check CPU usage and they all check hard disk usage and all those kind of things. But I've seen quite a few MSPs that don't have an up-down monitor to check whether the server has actually gone offline for whatever reason. Right? Which is in my opinion, it's a fundamental one that you really should have, and make sure that it's and also if you are going to have that kind of monitor, to make sure that it's alerting you in 1 or 2 minutes after the server's gone down, not like 8 or 9, which I've seen before as well. People say 8 minutes after the server's gone down. At that point, the customer's beating down your door and probably shouting and screaming and throwing the toys out the pram at that point. So you want to make sure that you've got those kinds of important ones set up. And again, it does really depend upon the environment that you're in and what you're monitoring as to what components and what things you would actually be needing to set up in your RMM tool.
That makes sense. So you mentioned earlier, we were talking about patch management. Now, it's been a while since I've really had to worry about doing patch management through the RMM, if I'm being completely honest. The last time I was on an RMM doing patch management, Windows 10 was out, and the updates, like all those feature updates, like the RMM just couldn't really handle doing that. Has that improved at all?
A little bit. I mean, it's certainly the patch management side and the feature update side has changed a little bit in the Datto RMM. It still does fail from time to time, but then again, I think some of the bigger RMM tools handle that much better. But yeah, I mean, Datto RMM does have it for the feature updates. But yeah, it works well most of the time.
Okay, because the one thing that I'm really starting to feel like is inevitable is I feel like we're gonna stop needing an RMM soon, if that makes sense. Like, Windows Intune, Microsoft Intune just does so much, and I feel like the Windows updates actually kind of work when you're managing it with Intune. Which makes sense. Microsoft would kind of develop both of them. So, and then they've got I always forget what it's called, but they're working on that new like multi-tenant thing over at Microsoft, where partners will be able to manage multiple tenants. So, do we need an RMM tool?
I think it depends. I mean, certainly from a patching perspective and updating, Windows patches and feature releases and all these kind of things, Intune does a great job with that. And, Intune is included in Microsoft 365, or certainly some of the packages. So yeah, that's going to do a great job of it. But, where it's going to fall over, I think is going to be able to, I'm not that familiar with Intune in terms of what it can do. So maybe somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but things like the third party management of tools like that, I think that you're still going to need an RMM tool for that. You're still going to need an RMM tool for non-Windows devices. So there's an awful lot of people out there that are using non-Windows devices. I mean, you and I both, case in points, we're both using a Mac. Although they don't have patching like Windows does necessarily, but they still need to be managed and maintained and updated, and the antivirus still needs to be kept up to date. So yes, I still think there is a need for an RMM tool. I think it's just going to be a slightly different need, possibly.
That's reasonable. So with third-party patching, Datto RMM at least has a component that will work with Chocolatey. And Chocolatey can manage a whole heck of a lot of third-party applications beyond Windows. And, I guess I kind of consider third-party applications to almost include Office, because I never know if Office is included in Windows Update anymore. It's just too confusing for me, especially when it's being managed by an RMM tool. So, do you recommend, as part of like onboarding a customer, getting kind of a list of all the third-party tools and software that's on each computer, and then kind of, I don't know, uninstalling it and then having Chocolatey reinstall it real quick? That way Chocolatey can manage it, because my understanding is Chocolatey can't update software unless it installed software.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it was a long time ago that I ran my MSP business, so I'm not familiar with a bunch of how these tools work, like Chocolatey and what have you. But I mean, certainly Datto has a software management component built in now. So things like the basic stuff. So Adobe PDF Reader and all these other ones, and in fact, including Office is actually on that list. So what it does is it says if the application doesn't exist, then go ahead and install it. And if it does exist, then just update it. So it actually does that already out of the box. There is only probably 15 or 20 on that list at the moment, but it is the stuff that everyone's using. So, it's things like Adobe and, FileZilla, FTP, and those kinds of tools that people would mainly use. So yeah, that is there, but yes, it does integrate with Chocolatey. And I guess if you're deploying a brand new machine, you might want to just have the Chocolatey stuff put on if you're already using that kind of thing, and then just have Chocolatey deploy and update all of those third-party apps moving forward.
Cool. What is the right way for us to start setting up like some automated remediation based on those monitors that we set up earlier?
So the right way, well, again, there's a bunch of components already built out of the box that allows you to do a lot of that remediation. So things like disk cleanup and a bunch of these other things that Datto has already built out of the box to allow MSPs to do that kind of remediation. So and some of the built-in policies in the system already have those built into them. So a perfect example, we spoke earlier on about disk space monitor. You can say if the disk space is running low, then attempt to run a disk cleanup, and if that sorts the problem out and it doesn't alert again, then great. If not, then create the alert and push that into Autotask as a ticket. So there are a bunch of components in there, but also tools, especially like Datto RMM, does have the ability to actually allow you to build your own components. So you can build those with PowerShell or VB script or whatever it is that whatever scripting language you want, and you can build your own components. And I would advise people to look at all of the things that they want to automate and the things that they want to remediate. And if there is already a component for that, Datto has a com store. So if it's already on the com store, then great. If not, then obviously, use something and go ahead and build it yourself.
Is there like a third-party com store that's like a, not hosted by Datto, but there's a bunch of people that use it kind of thing?
You know what? There used to be when I worked at Autotask way back in the old days. And I say the old days, it was only 4 or 5 years ago, but in IT, I think, anything older than like a year ago is the old days, right? So our GitHub, somebody's saying there's some stuff on GitHub. So yeah, I mean, and there's something, I guess GitHub has a bunch of components that people go onto. There used to, in the old days, be something that was managed by the community. I don't know if that's still a thing, but yeah, GitHub's definitely the one.
So when it comes to scripting, should somebody at that MSP be like, fluent in scripting? Does an MSP really need to have somebody that can do some, complicated PowerShell scripts?
My favorite saying in the world is Google is your friend. And literally, no, to answer your question, I don't think, I have no idea how to program anything. And I've had scripts, I've written scripts, or actually I should say I've stolen scripts from people on the internet via Google to do stuff that have worked really well. So no, I don't think you need it. It probably helps a little bit though if you had an internal person who knew how to write some newer scripting language, but yeah, you don't need it. There's enough stuff on the internet you can find out these days.
There is I wish I know who is making this website. There's a website. They don't put anything on it anymore. LazyNetworkAdmin.com. And they stopped posting back in July of 2020. The thing that I loved about this site is they had all kinds of scripts, so that way you could automate. And I'm talking back like server 2003 days. So they had scripts that would help us automatically mount network shares and set up the printers and all that good stuff, right? And it was all based on group membership. And then they just had so many cool scripts on there. I wish I knew of a place where you could go to get cool scripts these days. I know there's what's his name?
Well, GitHub, so somebody, has commented here on GitHub, and I've found a lot of stuff on there because I think not just data RMM scripts, but pretty much scripts for anything you could ever possibly wish to have. But
there's a really fantastic guy. He's European. I don't remember where he's from. It doesn't matter, but he is just constantly, showing MSPs, here's how I do PowerShell, and here's how to script this, and here's that, and giving away scripts left and right. Do you know who I'm talking about, Chris?
No.
Okay. His name starts with a letter. If that helps.
That narrows it down to every single person in starts with a letter.
I thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah, unless you're Elon Musk's kid, I think it starts with a number, doesn't it? I don't know.
I feel bad for that kid.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, with a dad like Elon Musk, I feel sorry for them anyway. I don't know. I know there's a bunch of people that write scripts and do those kind of things, but I don't know of anyone in particular. Maybe if anyone's listening, they can put something in the comments, and maybe we can.
I think I'm starting to remember it, and I don't know. I couldn't tell you how to spell this guy's last name. I always like in my brain, I always chuckle and go tickle chair, but I know it's not tickle chair. I think his first name's Kevin or Kelvin, one of those two. It's like Kelvin Tig.
When I type Kelvin anything, tickle chair.
Kelvin Tegelar. TE, and he's a Microsoft MVP. And he's the CEO at Lime Networks and a blogger at cyberdrain.com. This guy is a real asset to the MSP community. I'd love to talk to him sometime. He is constantly posting scripts up on this blog here and teaching MSPs how to do scripting. So I think it's a little bit of both. Like, here's just the script, but here I'm going to teach you, like, here's how to write this script and here's how to read this script so you can know what it's doing and know that it's safe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I just looked him up, and it's taking me actually to GitHub, which is what somebody mentions. But he's yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of stuff from him. So maybe that's a great guy to get on your next, or one of your next podcasts. Yeah, you can see it in there. It's this guy here, right?
Yes, sir.
Never heard of him, but I have now.
He's like I said, he is a real asset to the MSP community. He's on Reddit and Slack, Discord. Like he's all over the place, always helping people. So, all right. So we talked about scripting. When it comes to scripting, obviously we can look up, GitHub and Kelvin stuff. Is there anybody else that we can use to just outsource scripting for us? Like if we wanted to set up a bunch of remediation and scripting and automation and whatnot, is that something that you're able to do for us, Chris?
Yeah, I can certainly help. Sorry, just bear with me. I see my camera's just decided to stop.
Yeah, your battery might have died.
Yeah, I think my battery's probably dead. I'm gonna flick onto even my webcam doesn't seem to be happy at the moment. Okay, maybe I'm gonna have to go without a camera because
It's okay. We'll make it work.
Oh, hang on. Here we go. Allow. There we go. All right. It's not as good. It's my webcam, but yeah, I think the battery probably died on my Sony camera.
All good.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of I mean, I can, like I said, I've never programmed, or I'm not a programmer, but I can certainly help people steal stuff from Google and put it into the RMM tool. Absolutely. Most MSPs have people that are a lot smarter than me, can probably write a lot of these scripts better than I can themselves. But yeah, happy to help with wherever I can. And I also wanted to point out at this point, I mean, the guys at Datto who run the RMM side, there's a couple of people in the UK certainly that are like gurus in this product that can absolutely write scripts. There's certain people there that will could probably write a very complex script in 5 minutes with their eyes closed. So so definitely leverage those guys, right? Leverage the people on the RMM side at Datto. And even if they can't write the script, they probably may have access to a bunch of people that will know how to do it. So there actually used to be one of the guys who actually was before Datto RMM was Datto RMM, it used to be a product called CentraStage. And there was a guy who was one of the original CentraStage employees when there were only about 4 people in the company, a guy called Simon, and he used to have a website called Scripting Simon. And again, I think he stopped that website now, but I believe he may still work at Datto. And he would be a great guy to be able to leverage if people need to as well. So,
and let's talk about integrations. Obviously, integrating Datto RMM with Autotask is it's a no-brainer. But are there other integrations that you think every MSP should have with their RMM? And I ask this because I know back in the day, ConnectWise Manage had a bunch of integrations that sometimes they'd get super outdated, and now you'd have just another attack vector of some way to hack into the RMM. So what are there like must-have integrations with Datto RMM or what?
I guess in terms of, well, certainly the usual basic stuff that's out there, I would absolutely make sure to advise people to make sure they turn on things like 2FA or, use a YubiKey or one of those sort of things to secure it down so that hackers can't get into it. But, in terms of integrations, yes, it integrates absolutely with the Autotask PSA. There are also other integrations that work specifically on the PSA side, and one or two, like obviously Datto's own backup products, work within in the RMM tool. But the majority of the integrations that I know of, are integrating with a PSA tool rather than on the RMM side.
Got it. Well, Chris, if somebody wants to reach out to you and have you help them set up their PSA or RMM, how do they do that?
Yeah, great question. So I'm on all the socials. I hang around in the Autotask Facebook group. I'm on all the other MSP groups as well. I'm always on the Tech Tribe. So if anyone's on the Tech Tribe, you can find me there. Or you can just go to my website, which is www.sondelaconsulting.com, or just send an email to hello@sondelaconsulting.com. And and you can get in touch with me that way.
And how does it work? Is it a flat fee? Is it a monthly retainer type thing?
But both. So it depends on what people want. Some people just want an implementation. So an implementation lends itself better to a block of hours. So typically, I would sell a block of hours, normally 10, 15 or 20 hours. So somebody would buy that block and we would go through the entire implementation. We would go through that, with my MSP hat on. So I would help them implement that, in accordance with MSP best practices. And then some of the people after that, they want to engage with me on a longer term to just kind of, coach and help them to set things up. And as new releases come out, to kind of help them with that. So then they would revert onto a monthly plan. But I have some other MSPs who just want to, want me to kind of, they take me on as their Autotask champion, if you like, somebody who just, they just want me to come in and just fix it all and make it all work. And, and that often takes some time to do. So we'll sign them up on a monthly program and a monthly coaching, and I'll kind of help them to get the product set up and all of that kind of stuff. So it really depends upon what they want. And, but the majority of people are buying blocks of hours.
And what kind of investment are we seeing on average?
Again, it depends on how many blocks you buy, really. But typically, and I'll probably do this in dollars, it's around about, let me convert it from pounds. So it's probably around about $2,500 for a 10 block, somewhere in that region. So that's typically what people will be paying. And then on a monthly basis, it depends on what you want me to do for you. But, my standard coaching service, if you just want PSA stuff, is around $500 a month. And then the full kind of done for you service, where I'll become the Autotask champion, is around about $1,200 a month, somewhere in that region. So, so that's sort of what we charge.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much. Can you hold up that book again? Chris, just for those of you that missed it earlier, Chris wrote PSA Profitability. You can get it in a paperback or on Kindle, right from Amazon's web store. And I will put a link to that in the description. So it'll be.
It does also have its own website, which is psaprofitability.com.
Nice.
So you can go to psaprofitability.com, and there's the Amazon links on there as well. So I'll make sure you get those. And then and Steve, actually, if you, after this call, if you ping me your address, I will send you a signed copy as a thank you for having me on your podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that. Chris, thanks for coming on, man. This was fun. I hope that you guys all learned something. And seriously, obviously we just kind of dipped our toes in the water. I would feel comfortable having Chris do like a full implementation, on a PSA for my MSP, because at that point, I think there's a difference. You want to show people that stuff, but you don't want to give away the whole cake, right? So, I think we did a great job of educating people on on some of the right things they should be doing in their PSA and RMM, and they should be able to figure out how to do that stuff. But if they can't, or maybe just don't have the time or don't want to, then definitely go reach out to Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Steve. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Well, thanks so much for watching, folks, and I will catch you guys at the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.